Alright, what's up people? It's your boy. I want to have a quick little discussion about the guy right here. I got the top 5 going second cards that you want to put in your main deck, not including hand traps. Like hand traps are like hand traps is like obvious, like you're going second, you want to stop your opponent. Cards like Pankratops and what's the other card? Harpy's Feather Duster. So it's like stuff like that are good going second, but that's mostly relegated to like your side deck. Like I'm talking cards that you want to run in your main deck. I'm going to start off with Evenly Matched. This is like a personal one that I'm going to start trying out in my deck. Uh, I guess kind of similar to Dark Ruler No More, to where you pretty much you can't deal any damage. So when you activate Dark Ruler No More, you're gonna activate it. You're gonna turn off all the effects of your opponent's monsters. Then you're gonna try to break the board. Evenly Matched kind of like it basically does the same thing, so it's not gonna negate the monsters. But since your opponent most likely is set up to negate monster effects or spells, they don't always have the Omni negate. I mean, I guess hard to say because people are running Splight and you hit the Toad. But like I said, like if you're running tier elements, this in the main deck might catch him left guard. So here's some in the card you can try out. At number 9, so this one's a shared spot. I got Mind Control and Change of Heart. Both of these cards pretty much take care of the exact same issue. Like your opponent has a monster, you target it and you take it. It's with Mind Control, you're not able to attack with the monster. With Change of Heart, you can. The over at the most recent event, we mostly just saw people using Change of Heart by itself. Not a lot of people were choosing to go with the Mind Control. I think it's just personal preference. Like if you want to have another card to take your opponent's monster, then you could add the Mind Control. But usually just running the one Change of Heart will pretty much take care of any kind of problem that you see. Hopefully this card will come back to 2 or 3. 3 may be much, and 2 is a possibility, but like I said, this card is really good. I'm surprised it came back, but it hasn't been too impactful, but it could be, especially in like a deck that wants to go second. All right, at number 3 I have Rageky. Well, I guess not number 3. This would be number 7. We're gonna start from 10 and then go to 1. So at number 7 I have Rageky. So I guess this one I'm not gonna share it with Dark Hole. Although I could put Dark Hole here too, kind of do the same thing. But I think just Rageky being the classic destroy all monster your opponent controls. There's no cost besides just having the card available to you. The one thing that I guess it does have over Dark Hole is that you don't have to destroy your own monsters. So if you get it like in the mid game, or like you could have board presence like monsters, activate Rageky and get the same effect. Mostly this card actually just serves the purpose of getting rid of one of your opponent's negates. So I guess like it isn't as impactful as it used to be, but it still doesn't stop the fact that you got one card that could take out an entire board of monsters. I like to think Rageky's a pretty good going second card. Alright, so next on the list I have Enemy Controller. Now, I guess Enemy Controller I could have put in the same category as Change of Heart and Mind Control, but the fact that it's a quick play, and it also has the first effect of change the battle position to one face of monster on your opponent's side of the field, that right there just gives it a little bit extra. Like instead of just having the ability to take your opponent's monster, you could change the battle position so you could beat over stuff. Also, the fact that this card has you tribute a monster on the field to take a card, some people might see that as a disadvantage. In reality, it's actually a plus, especially in a deck like Splight, to where you don't need that many cards to get your combos going. So if you were to like special summon a Splight monster, activates effect, they try to negate it, you could activate Enemy Controller and you could get around that effect. Like if they want to Imperm or Veiler one of your Splight monsters, you could activate Enemy Controller, tribute it, take your opponent's monster, and your effect is still going to go off because like cards that they can target a card in the field, the card has to remain on the field. So this right here gives the ability to take your opponent's monster and play around hand traps. In a way, this could take out 2 cards with in a way that this could take 2 birds out with 1 stone. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's like a 1 card answer. Yeah, you do got a tribute, but it's not the worst drawback, especially when you're playing around hand traps. Next on the list, I have Super Poly. This one's very, very self-explanatory. You got Super Poly, discard a card, and you fusion summon. You fusion summon using monsters on either side of the field as material. So like the one thing that a couple people brought up to me is that they didn't know that you could use more than one monster on either side of the field. So it just says using is like it says you some special summon one fusion monster using monsters from either side, like either side of the field. Oh my god. Card's right in front of me and I still can't read it properly. This is the problem of Yu-Gi-Oh players here. So basically, I'm gonna jumble up my words. Is that you could use two of your opponent's monsters to summon something. So it it kind of turns this into a situation where people think, oh well, I have to discard a card. Well, if your opponent has two monsters you could use them both. And but like I said, a lot of times this is just used to get around like problematic monsters or negates that that normally would be able to negate the card that's being activated against it. So if you had a Toad on the board and you activate Rageky, the Toad could respond and stop the Rageky. But if you have Super Poly, then there is no responding to this card. You're just gonna take it out without you having to worry about that. So that's like the one plus that it does have. The next card on my list, number 5, is Ultimate Slayer. Some people might think why this card isn't a little higher on the list. I initially thought this card was just going to be the end all be all. I thought it was very broken, makes sense. The opponent can respond to it. Allows you to send a lot of different types of cards from your extra deck, which means that depending on the type, like if you send a Synchro, you could send the Pegasus at Ignister. I think I forgot the name, but it's the one that where if it's in the graveyard, it's a synchro monster. Where it's in the graveyard, you could your opponent activates a monster effect, you could bounce a card. So it's like an interruption. If you send a fusion, if you send if you send the new fusion from Power of the Elements, and when it's sent to the graveyard, it allows you to draw a card. So like there's a lot of ways where you can get extra value out of the cards that you send for its cost, making this card way more broken. But in a way, you also kind of have to run a certain type of extra deck. It doesn't take too much. It doesn't take too much for you to I guess cover like all the bases. I mean, like unless you run a pendulum, like well no I know no they have some pendulum. They have that pendulum XYZ monster that you could probably send directly from your extra deck. But for the most part, if you want to cover all your bases with this card, you're gonna have to run a certain type of extra deck. And if your strategy, just runs, if you run like a synchro strategy, then you're pretty much forced to put fusion XYZ or league monsters in there. And like I said, if you already have a tight extra deck and you want to have extra coverage, you might end up having to like sacrifice a certain card you might want to tech in to make sure you have an extra fusion, synchro, XYZ, or link to send off with it. But like I said, for the most part, this card, your opponent cannot respond to it with monster effects, makes it broken like Dark Ruler no more. Very good for going second. So at number 4 on the list, I have Lightning Storm. Very, very self-explanatory. Destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. Destroy all spell and trap cards your opponent controls. As long as you have no face-up cards. This right here is just like probably like 3rd or 4th time I send this. 2 birds and 1 stone. It is just takes care of everything. Yeah, it's like you won't have. It doesn't want you to have any face-up cards, but at the same time, you could having this card available to you just creates more room. Like if you're afraid of monsters or if you're afraid of the back row, having this card just gives you more room to run other things that'll help you get around that. So if you're afraid of back row, you're like, all right, you want to run Lightning Storm and you want to run Harpy's Feather Duster, MST. I just noticed this is MST right here. I actually just noticed that. Like it just makes it to where you don't have to run 3 copies of this and 3 copies of that and make sure you're taking care of the monsters and the back row. You can just have the 3 cards, and depending on the situation, you can use it. Very, very good going second. I wish it was a little more accessible for other players right now, but it is what it is. Hopefully this card will be reprinted, maybe in Battle of Legend, and we could get some more people to use this card. So at number 3, I want to put Triple's Tactics Talents. Maybe these next 3 right here, you could probably move them around a bit depending on the type of player you are. But Triple's Tactic Silence is just hands down one of the best going second cards. It has 3 different effects. You could draw 2 cards, take control of one monster your opponent controls to the end phase, or you could look at your opponent's hand and choose 1 card from it and shuffle into the deck. You can only activate 1 of these per turn, but you really only need 1 per turn, especially if you're in that position to where your opponent has maybe 1 or 2, like has about 2 cards in the hand, and they activate their 1 hand trap, and then you activate this and you take that last card, and to where they can't come back and you have a follow-up after Triple's Tactic Talent. This changes games around. And even if it doesn't change the game, just having this in your hand makes you feel so much better, knowing that you could at least do something and try to dig for more cards, or maybe you could take control of something. You already have Change of Heart in your hand, you could take 2 monsters. This could turn around games. At number 2, I have Mystic Mine. Unfortunately, I am not the biggest fan of this card, but it is also an extremely good going second card. Yes, it does support a really toxic way of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very much a mixture of depending that your opponent not only doesn't have the out, but doesn't run enough cards to out it, seeing as that not every single player is running this card, but it's here, it's there, it's enough to where people will build their decks in a way to be able to out it slightly, but a lot of people, either Mystic Mine players playing the deck or just someone playing Mystic Mine, could take advantage of that, to where if you could set this up with Beat Cop or with some type of negation, this becomes broken to where your opponent might be digging for their 1 out, they try to activate it, and then you just negate it or protect it, and you just go on your merry way. So dropping this card, going second, and just stunning your opponent, putting them in a position where, you know what, I might not be able to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore, this very much right here could win you the game. Even if it's not just by deck out, just by dropping this card, giving yourself a few turns, and maybe turning it off yourself and OTKing them, you could do something with this card. This card needs to go. Get it out of here. Alright, and for number 1, a lot of you are probably expecting this, is Dark Ruler No More. We all know the effect of Dark Ruler No More. I'm not going to be reading, everything. We know what this card does, okay? It negates the effects of all the face-up monsters, and your opponent cannot respond to it. That's the important part. That's what makes this card good. I believe that Konami might want to pull some Konami-ness, whatever you want to call it, and they might want to bring this card to 1, just because they just brought us Ultimate Slayer. Yeah, they just brought us the Ultimate Slayer, and then we also have Forbidden Droplets being reprinted in the tins, and those are 2 cards that your opponent cannot respond to, and also do something similar to Dark Ruler No More, to where they negate the effects of monsters, allowing you to break boards easier. Konami might want to push you and funnel you towards those cards more. They might limit this, but for now, this is a must. Whether you're going first or second, this is a must. This card right here just can win you the game by itself. Just like playing this card and having a slight follow-up. Doesn't even have to be like a full Omni Negate board. Just having this card, playing, little interruptions, like it could just win you the game. So yeah, that's why I feel like this is a number 1 going second card right now. Even though you can't OTK your opponent when you activate this, just if you activate this card and you set up even a decent board, you have 1 negate and 1 interruption with 1 card to come back with, no hand traps, this could still win you the game. That's how powerful this card is. Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. That's it for now. I checked real quick. I thought I had another tab open. Yes, I don't. That's it for now. Thanks for stopping by. Peace out.